Good evening. I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and thank you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Each week on Channel 3, I'm happy to talk about this interface between Christianity and medicine. And particularly tonight, I'm happy as we get into the Strawberry Festival celebrations to talk about wellness and wholeness and the abundant life that Christ promised us. He said that I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And I think that we have come full circle this year. Many things have happened, but as we get to the Strawberry Festival, it's time to think about wellness and health and of course, celebrate our community, which is a wonderful place. Some of the things that have happened to us have been on the opposite of the wellness side. We've had some violence in school, we've had bullying, we've had some horrible tragedies, and this is sad. But it is time to look at the positive, because if you want to think about it this way, the opposite of wellness would be violence. And we see this over and over again in our society, and certainly I see it in my practice of medicine. For example, as a doctor, if someone comes to me distressed, I'm required as part of my examination to ask, are you going to harm yourself? Are you going to harm anyone else? And it's a required question, and people will respond to it when a doctor asks in a frank and caring way, because they don't want to hurt anyone and they don't want to hurt themselves. But it's the opposite of wellness. It's on the other side of the spectrum. So I thought tonight, in a reflective way, I'd like to talk about wellness. And I have a book. I've just returned from the American Psychiatric Association. This is an annual meeting that we have of doctors. And I was very pleased this year that my daughter Maria could join us and her little baby Eliza, and along with her husband and my wife, Araceli. I picked up a book called Preventing Bullying and School Violence. And it has several different chapters in it. And I want to, in the future, focus a little bit about some of these thoughts that how can we prevent school violence, how can we prevent bullying, but I thought it was appropriate, at least at this time, to talk about wellness. How can we celebrate our wellness? What are 8 things that we know are universally true about wellness? And maybe you can just be reflective here for a few minutes as you get ready to go and celebrate the Strawberry Festival and enjoy a family time and one of the sweetest fruits that God ever made, our strawberry. Maybe you can just reflect for a few minutes about wellness. First of all, wellness is being a good enough mother to our children. We've just celebrated Mother's Day. And I'm a male. Of course, I can't necessarily be a mother, but I can mother, I can nurture, I can care. And all of us, when it comes to our children, and this is a sense of wellness. Where do we get that sense of wellness? We get it from having good enough mothering. We don't have to be perfect with our children. We don't have to have grown up in perfect homes, but we do need to be surrounded by love and caring, and a sense of being good enough. George Violent wrote about this in a book in 1977. He was a psychiatrist who had some foresight. He was going to medical school at the time of World War II, and he was going to Harvard Medical School. He asked his classmates to take a survey, and then every year he would ask them to take the survey again. These were people who were born with silver spoons in their mouth. They had every opportunity in the world. Some of them were successful as they went through life. Some were not successful. They turned into alcoholics. They failed in business. They did horrible things in their life. But some were ultimately very successful. And anyway, his questionnaire has become very valuable because he gave it to them, to these 400 people for 40 years, for their generation of their life. And one of the traits of people who become successful is that they have good enough mothers, or they have good enough mothering. It may be a grandmother or a grandfather or someone like that who substitutes for the parent, but we need that role. A second thing about wellness is we need to watch our children and understand what they're watching. What is the media teaching them? And this is a cautionary note. Even down to 18 months of age, children should not be babysat by just letting them watch TV. The advertisements may give the wrong message. Of course, the reality shows may give the wrong message. Sometimes, of course, the movies and things like that are outright violent or too sexual in nature. So we need to be aware of what our children are watching. What is the media teaching our children? If we want to get a handle on wellness and of course, overcome ultimately violence and bullying, things like this. The media is very, very influential. Much can be said about any one of these topics, but I just want to, as sort of tip the scale toward wellness today for you. Third point is to watch for and take care of any subtle variations in your children's intellectual skills. Don't deny that. Children have various skills. I'm not sure that I was very good at speaking when I was a child. I remember my mother saying that I was very slow to actually pick up speech. But I've been nurtured along in that. Here I am now speaking on TV. Part of this was an exercise, if you will, overcoming a shyness that I may have had. But it was a trait that I was born with. My mother picked up early on it. I began to work on it years and years ago, and here I am today. But each of our children have variations in their intellectual skills. We have a son who's very interested in history. He went into law. Had a daughter who was very good in math and science, and she went into medicine. Not that those were required choices down the road, but that's where their intellectual skills and their variations led them. And I think that either one of the children would have been happy if they had made the other choice. Some children, of course, are more interested in music, and that should be encouraged. Some in sports, that should be encouraged. You get the idea. We don't want to just put children into a mold that's of our making. We want to identify the variation we see in our children and go with that. A fourth point would be discuss the human mind in its various stages with children. Children learn from their parents all the time. They listen in. Sitting down with a family meal and talking about the crisis in the community. What if there's a fire? Are we going to come to the aid of the people who are burnt out? Are we going to offer them old clothes? We're going to give them some canned goods. What do children hear the parents talk about if there's a crisis? If someone's old and getting unable to care for themselves, I remember this when I was a little boy. We encouraged to go help them with their garden. We encouraged to help them take out their garbage or bring in their coal, or help the older person. What happens around the table? What are we encouraged to learn about how to handle crises and what happens in an adult? Do you talk about your children's moods? Okay, you're a young person, you're happy-go-lucky. Someday you'll be a teenager, you may have moods. You may be angry sometimes. We have to learn to master that now. You teach that to the children. They learn that around the family table. And it's important to talk about the human mind, variations, again, and how we problem solve, things like that. A fifth point would be care for the environment, living green. We're very, very blessed to be in West Virginia. I can say that having traveled to other places. We are very blessed. We have clean water, clean air. We have a wonderful environment. And this is a great place to raise children. I asked my own children about this, and they said they feel very grounded in West Virginia. And I think that's an important thing. Some people don't have that good fortune. They have to be very deliberate to raise their children green. Don't let your children stay too much indoors, watching TV, playing computer games. Rule of thumb is 2 hours or less of screen time and 2 hours or more, and considerably many more hours of green time, letting children get out of doors and do things. This festival that we have, the Strawberry Festival, the 71st year, what a wonderful way to teach children about being green, about having gardens, raising strawberries, celebrating a fruit, and of course just enjoying all the things that happen, the horses, the parades, things like that are out of doors, being green in so many ways. Much could be said about any of these, but I just want to, as I say, hit some highlights. Teach children about doing good and do good. Altruism, doing something for someone else and they can never pay you back. It's a wonderful trait. And in fact, I don't believe and many people who are philosophers and think about this don't believe that civilization could exist unless we are altruistic, unless we are doing good. Now, there's a difference between being a do-gooder and putting things onto people they don't want to have put on them, or preaching to someone who doesn't want to preach to, or you pick your own way that people can impose something politically on someone, something like that. That's not what we're talking about here. Doing good is simply doing good, being kind to one another. It was described of Jesus that he went about doing good. And if you look at his lifestyle, it was a very unhurried lifestyle, and he helped people day by day wherever he was. It's a wonderful way to live our life, doing good to help others. There's a term called kin altruism, and we understand kin and clan here in the mountains. Many of us are related to one another. Of course, we're related as a community, and we have the term from the parish house about being neighborly to one another. Kin altruism, helping those who are closest to us. And if someone falls, they need help. If someone fails in business, maybe they need refinanced. If someone needs a babysitting service, they don't need to hire an expensive babysitting service. Maybe someone who loves those children and loves us can help us out. This is kin altruism, a very, very important trait for wellness. And finally, using leisure time for leisure. We live in a work culture. Many of us work 2 jobs now to make ends meet. I heard something the other day, someone was taking a 3rd job and they said, I'm not even going to make ends meet, I'm just going to get my ends close together. And they were making a joke, but many of us work too much, don't we? We don't have enough leisure time. Ideally, if you think about this, love and play should occupy just as much of our time and energy as work does. Now, someone will say, well, if I don't work hard, then we'll be poor. Well, maybe so, but a lot of creative things happen when we're playing and when we allow ourselves to be at leisure. Other cultures have mastered this, and I'll just go back, and this is in a different time, but when I was beginning my medical career, I was aware that Reagan was president, and he said that all politics should be aside. If the Democrats and Republicans hate each other and fight and debate in Congress, then after 5 o'clock they should get together for games, for fun, for dinner, and not talk about politics at all. And he mastered that, and it worked. It brought a kinder, gentler environment to Washington. Well, so leisure will happen that way for many of us. I grew up in a community where we would gather in the evening to play horseshoes, where of course maybe the adults would even play ball with us, or we would have other games, picnics together, celebrations together. Again, the Strawberry Festival is our example for our children, where we can enjoy leisure together in family fun and a family experience. All these are giving us a sense of wellness. I want to switch gears just slightly and talk a little bit about this in a more doctorly term. I'm going to go to a statement that William Minneker made in 1966. He described criteria for emotional maturity. Again, the opposite of wellness is violence. We don't want to have bullying. We don't want to have suicide, homicide, all other forms of violence. We don't want that. We want people to be emotionally mature, our children in our school. We want ourselves on a path toward emotional maturity. We can get old and never mature, can't we? So in a more clinical vein, let me share with you 7 points that William Minneker said mark our trail, our path toward emotional maturity. The first of all is the ability to deal constructively with reality. Whatever life gives us, let's deal with it constructively. I remember this from 4-H. If life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. I like that. I like cute things like that and puns and so forth, but that makes sense to me. Deal constructively with reality. Whatever life gives us. I have people every day who come and they have problems, and as they begin to discuss their problems, sometimes they hear their own solution. For instance, today I had a a family that was in distress. They live in a very small, cramped space. And I asked a simple question. I said, well, if you pull your resources in a different way, can you move to a bigger place? For example, sometimes moving into the country is cheaper than living in town. And it might be healthier in many other ways. You could have a farm animal, you could raise a garden, and on and on and on. You can deal constructively with reality. There's the capacity to adjust to change. This is also part of a maturity. Things will change. We speak about that in a joking way about Sonny Buchanan. But if it's raining today, it'll be sunny tomorrow. Just wait, the weather will change. If you don't like it, just wait, it'll change. The factor of life that's certain is that there will be change, and we need that capacity to adjust to change. That's a part of emotional maturity. If children are going to school and they're moving up, I remember I was intimidated by just the thought of going to the high school, because I heard that older kids might put younger kids like myself on the drinking fountain. They might pick us up and literally put us on the drinking fountain, get our pants wet, make jokes about us, whatever they would do. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that for me. But I had to deal with that change. I was nevertheless growing up. I was going to go to school. And I stayed together with some of my friends, and nothing like that happened to me, nor to my friends. We were able to adjust to change. A third factor is relative freedom from symptoms produced by tensions and anxieties. Anxiety is, of course, a way to tell us that we need to deal with something, where tension may be a way to say something is wrong. Let's go back and look at this situation over again. But we need to have that relative freedom from symptoms of anxiety and tension. Most of the time, if we build in leisure, if we build in a time for love, if we say to each other, I love you, I care for you, I like you as a person, that helps get rid of tension, that helps get rid of anxiety. We can even approach someone and say, I like you as a person, we use the same toothpaste to brush our teeth, but would you make a change for me? Would you not squeeze the toothpaste at the top? Would you squeeze at the bottom? Something like that, a small change. And they may come back and say, I like you as a person, and yes, I'll make that change. And we could deal with that without tension. And so a relatively emotionally mature person has relative freedom from symptoms produced by tension and anxiety. A fourth sign of emotional maturity is the capacity to find more satisfaction in giving than in receiving. Again, altruism, but more satisfaction in giving than in receiving. The Bible said it best, it's more blessed to give than to receive. But can we get that satisfaction out of that? I have found, and this is a life experience now, 64 years, that whenever I give, I actually receive back more. And it's not even my goal. That's not my goal for giving. But I give, and then suddenly there's more given back to me. It seems like it's overflowing. It's pressed down and overflowing. Again, the Bible speaks in those terms. But we want to teach our children that capacity. It's more blessed to give than receive. Get satisfaction from giving. The capacity to relate to other people in a consistent manner with mutual satisfaction and helpfulness. One of the best things about life in a small town like Buchanan and celebrating is the consistency. I rejoice that this is Strawberry Festival time, that this is the 71st festival. I can look back on my own life. I perhaps have been around for all but 7 or 8 of these festivals, and I see the pattern of consistency. And I rejoice in that. It's healthy. It helps us. Even I mentioned this in the start of this program, that in the circle of life, this is a good time to reflect on wellness and health and see where we are compared to where we were a year ago. Politicians lately were running for office. Public servants, let's put it that way, were running for office. And many of them were standing on a platform saying that in my 4 years, in my 8 years, in my period of service, I see that things have improved. And they were pointing to examples how things have improved. But there was a consistency also that they were talking about, that we have always been a caring community, and now we have more ball fields for our children. We've always been a caring community, and now we have more spaces for public meetings and gatherings, and now we have a better farmers market, and so forth. But there's a consistency in that we care for one another, that we're neighborly, and that's an important thing for our own mutual satisfaction and for helpfulness, as Dr. Menninger says. A sixth point we want to make tonight is the capacity to sublimate, to direct one's instinctive hostile energy into creative and constructive outlets. So a high trait of emotional maturity is sublimation. We all have something that we may hate. We may hate it with a vengeance. Child abuse. I don't like child abuse. I would say I hate that child abuse. So how do we get rid of it? We sublimate our energies. We put our energies into making the schools a better place, making our churches a place where children can come and learn about love and learn to sing songs. We sublimate our energy toward 4-H clubs and scout clubs, scout troops, and all sorts of things like this. We take what could be a hostile energy or a negative energy, and we turn it into something positive. And people will do that because of their various talents. Not all of us can teach drama, but some of us can, and summer theater is a great way to supplement our energy. Not everyone is a musician, nor can they teach children to play musical instruments, but those who can, they can supplement their energies in that direction. And you see how that goes. So Dr. Menninger is saying we want to develop that capacity to supplement, to direct our instinctive and hostile energy into creative and constructive outlets. I'd say the more creative, the better. I rejoice that the Honorary Art Society of Buchanan Upshur High School has painted a little mural on the street, right at our prominent corner of Locust and Main Street. What a way to be creative. Of course, we have our mural downtown also. We have many examples we can point to. And the final thing that Dr. Menninger says is that we have the capacity to love. This is a part of emotional maturity. Again, the opposite of love and wellness is violence, and we want to get so far away from that we need that to develop that capacity to love. These are great thoughts that we want to do. So in the final 5 minutes or so, let me talk about our schools for a minute, because I've had the privilege in my circle of life to serve on the school board now for about 1.5 years. And so I can make some observations about schools. First of all, what is a peaceful school? And because that would be what we would want. We want our schools to be peaceful for our children so they can learn more, they can feel safe. Well, first of all, everyone feels safe. That would be the hallmark of a peaceful school. And we need to have a zero tolerance for violence, for disruptive behavior, for anything that's dangerous to our children. So everyone needs to feel safe. Now, this will happen in various ways, and people will slip. Remember, I used the term in the beginning, being a good enough mother. It doesn't mean we have to be perfect at this, and society certainly is not perfect. Schools are not perfect. Teachers have bad days. Other classmates may have had a rough weekend and they a little rowdy on a bus or something, but we want everyone to be safe. That's the first point. We want children to learn to cooperate. I think it's great when you think about everything I learned about life, I learned in kindergarten. You've heard of that. But we need to clean up our own messes. We need to cooperate. If someone also is having trouble, we need to help them. We cooperate with them. Hold the door for someone if they have too many books. If the teacher asks for someone to help them, at least in my grade school days, that we would a privilege, but it was a little messy. But we would clean the chalk out of the erasers, and of course we'd go outside and make dust or something like that. But we were cooperating with our teacher. We were doing what we could, and we felt big and good about that as children because of a sense of cooperation. Adults need to model. A lot of what I've said tonight was on the back of the adults teaching emotional maturity, teaching wellness to their children. We need to model positive behaviors and attitudes and school spirit. I rejoice that we have a tradition of loving and caring and school spirit in each of our schools. And I've seen that. I've gone to the grade schools over the past year, to the middle school, to the high school, and I've seen that there's a school spirit that's very positive, and I'm proud of what the children do. Even on this issue of bullying, there have been student-initiated programs which are wonderful. I've attended some of those, and that's a spirit of helpfulness, a spirit of love and caring one for another. And adults, of course, need to also come forward and do things like that. If you feel like you are a coach, or if you feel like you could be a scout leader, if you feel like you could be a 4-H leader, a church leader, step forward and do that as an adult. It'll have major results in peaceful schools. Helpfulness is a trait we want to lift up. Cooperation, altruism, all are to be encouraged and rewarded. I'm happy that the doctors of our community, the Central West Virginia Medical Society, sponsored an essay contest asking students in the 11th and 12th grade to write an essay, 500 words, describing why they may want to be a doctor. And of course, some of the answers we wanted to get would be, how altruistic can they be? How can they serve other people? How can they be part of a healing profession? And we got some wonderful essays. On future shows, I'm going to be sharing those with you. And that contest, I'm happy that we sponsored the contest and that children came forward, and because it teaches us about altruism and caring, and we rewarded the children. The essays that won $500. That's substantial reward. But reward is not always money. The final point is the competition is not exaggerated. We need to also learn from, we want to teach winning and losing. Some team will win, some team will lose, but we don't want to exaggerate that if we want to have a peaceful school. Our son, Ronce, who's now an attorney, was playing soccer against another school. And I won't mention the town because I'm not wanting to try to create rivalry or anything like that, or get into another battle of sorts. But anyway, the coach of the other side was wanting his team to be a little bit more aggressive, and one of the players pushed my son and broke his arm. And that was a minor tragedy, but it was a teaching point for us. The arm healed. We learned a lot about then how to want to win, but not to exaggerate competition. And the end result is, I think we have a very peaceful, mature son who learned that lesson. I'm sure other kids heard us teaching Ronce. Maybe he repeated it to other people. And so that goes, the circle of life. Well, this is an effort tonight to be reflective about what is wellness. Enjoy the Strawberry Festival. We're getting into a wonderful time of year for us, a time of leisure, a time of family experience, and a time to be reflective about what is great about Buchanan. And until the next week, enjoy the festival. This is Dr. Greenbrier Allman thanking you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Special thanks to Channel 3 for the opportunity to come your way each week. We'll see you around.